talk more about what we can expect tonight with the president. We have political analyst Brian Sobel with us now. Brian, let's start with Iran, though. You just heard Mike read that story. 10 sailors in custody. This happened just today, so will this change the president's speech, and how? How do you think so?
I don't think so. I think this is something that'll be solved diplomatically and very quickly. It is not in Iran's interest at this point to hold those sailors, and I think they'll be released very, very quickly.
Will he mention it, though? Will he have at least two versions ready, one if they are still being held and one if they're released? Will he at least acknowledge it?
He may, but again, I think this is a tempest in a teapot, to use that old expression, and I think it's going to be solved. He may mention it, but it's not obviously going to be the key part of his speech tonight.
Okay, well, let's put Iran aside then. What else do you expect to hear from the president tonight, and how is he going to be optimistic, especially when it comes to national security, keeping Americans safe, the terrorism that we've seen recently? How is he going to be optimistic?
Well, first, remember that this is President Barack Obama's last State of the Union speech. So he is going to set a framework for his legacy here, and so it's got to be upbeat, and most of the speech will deal with accomplishments over his years in office, the fact that the future for the United States is great because he's working very hard now on what's going to come post-presidency. The other thing to keep in mind is we're in the middle of an election and an election season, and so he doesn't want to do anything that diminishes the chances of the Democrats to take the presidency, and so everything tonight that you're going to hear is going to be around positives, and that's going to be the theme of the speech.
Well, you brought up the election. Let's talk more about that. Is he going to discuss it? Is he going to talk about the candidates? What do you think he'll say in regards to this election?
I don't think much. The State of the Union is a very special speech, and if any American citizen can see that speech in person, you see that it's filled with pomp and circumstance. I've been to a State of the Union speech, and it is really a remarkable experience, and what you see is that the president spends a lot of time crafting legacy or crafting what will happen in a year. They tend not to get too bogged down in these other issues, and he's going to be a little partisan tonight, but I don't think he's going to be greatly partisan tonight.
All right, Brian, what do we expect to hear from South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley? She is giving the Republican response that comes right after the speech. You know, she is set to be a rising star in the Republican Party, possibly a vice presidential candidate. Yes,
and she's going to counter, obviously, what the president says by trying to craft the presidency and Barack Obama's legacy as one of not accomplishing a whole lot. So that's going to be her job this evening, and to point out that the Republicans have a brighter future. I suspect that her speech will be much more political than the president's will be.
All right, political analyst Brian Sobel, we will all see tonight. Brian, thank you.
Absolutely.